Welcome back. Still VOP this morning on VOP TV. Before the break, we told you that we have a topic based on the state of the nation to look at, and that has to do with the federal government intercepting 141 smuggled grains as truck drivers threaten strike over attack. In the face of hunger and food scarcity bedeviling the nation, what we may term as good news is one on the horizon, as the federal government on Tuesday said it has so far intercepted 141 trucks attempting to smuggle grains and other staples to Niger Republic, Chad, Cameroon, and the Central African Republic. Bashir Adeniyi, the Comptroller-General of the Nigerian Customs Service, revealed that the service had, within 2 weeks, arrested about 120 trucks smuggling food items from Nigeria, while the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, stopped 21 food trucks from leaving the country on Tuesday. In a related development, truck drivers who have been targets of attacks by hoodlums have threatened to declare a strike if the situation persists. Several trucks and warehouses, mostly owned by manufacturers and other members of the organized private sector, have come under attack from hoodlums as the food inflation and the cost of living cases and crisis in the country spiral.
Now, amid this concerning issues, voices have sprung up. Prominent among them is the IMF telling the federal government to battle food insecurity and make it a priority for the betterment of Nigeria. Also, the Labour Party presidential candidate in last year's general elections, Mr. Peter Obi, has expressed the opinion that Nigeria is in a deplorable state under this present administration. Now, while some may say this is the voice of the opposition, stakeholders have warned of looming danger and severe consequences if the looting of warehouses is left unchecked, as it might lead to an even more tragic breakdown of law and order in the country. As of January this year, food inflation was at 33.93%, and it's only gone higher with such a shocking situation. How much more can Nigerians take before they become even backed up by the war? Now, just how hungry must the people be? Interestingly, our guest is with us this morning, and we're just going to be diving into it almost immediately. Dr. Ganiyu Olushola, FCTI Managing Partner, KJB Professional Service. A very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get to it almost immediately. So much has been said about this inflation rates going higher, food insecurity, and all of this. At this point, one would want to ask a major question. Is it possible that the move to addressing security is paramount and should be taken of utmost importance, even as we stand as a nation? Because Nigeria seems to be, well, in my honest opinion, well, in the words of maybe one politician, sitting on a keg of gunpowder. Is it something we should worry about as a nation?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's something we should worry about because it calls for concern and it calls for an immediate action. That's why you see some of these people in the upper house trying to converge and meet with the president because they discover that it's actually biting the things hard. Right? When you discover, okay, look at what happened in Benue. Benue is seen as the food basket of Nigeria. Yeah. And the whole place is already being turned to like a dead zone. A lot of bandit attack here and there. People does not have a free will to go to the farm. And if they don't go to the farm to farm, so how can they cultivate? How can they plant? And how can we harvest? Yeah. And the few one we also have is being moved out of the country to another jurisdiction, right? Because our borders are porous. What we have is not enough to feed the teeming population, the Nigerians, and the ones we have, some selfish people, are even moving it out of Nigeria to another. So are you telling me that there are no people manning the borders to be able to, where are the customs, where are the government that are manning the borders,
yeah,
to be able to curtail these evil acts, right? Because you know that people are also taking advantage of our currency that is being weakened. You know, once they move it out of the country to another jurisdiction, their currency is stronger than our own. They sell it there, they get their currency, and they bring it back to Nigeria, convert it to Nigerian currency, and they earn more, they gain more at the expense of Nigeria. So I think a whole lot of things needs to be done.
Okay. Now, my question will be very direct at this point. So, Nigeria is a major exporting nation. We rarely produce. Now, just yesterday or the day before, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is coming to tell us that over 767 companies have folded up. We're not producing. Now, does that maybe should be of a concern, because farmers are not going to the farm, and Nigeria is large when it comes to landscape. Are we supposed to be particular about the borders and majorly securing the borders rather than producing as a nation? Isn't that some kind of a wrong step in the right direction?
They both works hand in hand, right? We can be producing more and be moving it out of the border and not benefiting the Nigerian citizen, right?
Yeah.
Because even the few ones we said we have that we are producing at an expense of the Nigerian citizen, it's been moved to other jurisdictions. They are enjoying the benefit more than the Nigerians, right? So we should think of producing more. But in the place of producing more, all parameters should be in place to be able to close the leakages and loopholes.
Okay.
Right? Because if not, it's just like the subsidy we're talking about. The crude oil we have is being sold in the neighboring country at a very cheap price, right? Which means that, and this same oil is being subsidized by Nigerian president, by the Nigerian government, right? So all these things needs to be put in place. And you will agree with me that Nigeria in the early 80s and late 70s, we are major oil we have a major strength in the agricultural space, right? And when you look at it now, even within our agricultural space, the farmers can't go to the farm because of the bandits, because of the kidnapping, right? And the few goods we have, the price are getting higher day in, day out. You will see that what is driving our inflation is not only the number of money in the country, but food inflation over 33.9%, which is our food inflation, which is very high, right? When you look at all these things, all these parameters, it's having a negative impact, because if the farmers can't go to the farm, the few things they produce or they cultivated, that's why you say that a tuber of yam could cost around almost 5,000. Just one tuber of yam. And this is what we said, that then much money are running after few goods, and which we call cost push inflation.
Okay. Now,
go ahead.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll just inform that we have Nick Agule. He has joined us virtually to look at the state of the nation. Nick Agule is a chartered accountant, an oil and gas expert, and a political analyst. Okay, now, Mr. Nick, good morning. I would like to come to you because what I want to ask us to do is monetary part. Now, also we have a story talking about the state of the nation, whereby Wale Edun is accused, or rather saying that the money that was printed during the time of President Buhari, that was in 2022, end of 2022, then 2023, we're having cash scarcity. He said that these also contributed to farmers not having enough money to get the crops that they need to plant and not even be able to sell the little one that they have. And he pegged that to be part of the reasons we're having food scarcity in the country. And now, please help us to explain that in detail. What do you make of that, please, Mr. Nick? What's your stand on that? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you.
You're welcome.
Yes. I'm here, but whether you can hear me, I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me?
All right,
Yeah,
go
we
ahead.
can. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. So good morning to you in the studios, and good morning to our viewers. I also read about the central bank governors statement. What I read was that the ways and means, which is the monies that the central bank prints for the government, in this case the federal government, is contributory to inflation that the country is experiencing now. And the answer is yes. And we warned them. We kept telling them, because like I did an article which was printing money, our road to Zimbabwe. I wrote that article immediately Governor Obaseki blew the whistle. And when Governor Obaseki blew the whistle, I thought he was not 100% with his numbers. But when the central bank governor then, Godwin Emefiele, he came on TV in a very boastful and arrogant way, was saying, yes, as a bank of last resort, they will come to the rescue of the government. And basically, immediately I heard the central bank governor agree that they were printing money. I wrote that article that Central Bank of Nigeria printing money, our road to Zimbabwe. That article went viral. And in that article, I warned the government. And I said, look, printing money, which is also called quantitative easing, is a monetary policy tool, legitimate, used by central banks elsewhere to boost output and generate economic recovery. In the United States, it was used during the economic crash of the 2008-2009. Same thing in the UK, France, Germany, central banks used it. Even post-COVID, the Bank of England and other central banks around the world, they used it. So it's a legitimate tool. But the problem with the way the tool was being used in Nigeria is that you don't print money and use it for consumption. You print money to boost output. Because if you boost output, then inflation is curtailed, because the additional goods and services that are produced will curtail inflation. In Nigeria, they were printing money for consumption. The federal government will print money and use it to pay salaries, use it for travels, and use it for all those kind of things. And a lot of the printed money was looted. And once it was looted, they turned the money into the foreign exchange market looking for dollars. Because people in government these days, they don't want to keep their money in naira. They used to keep their money in real estate. So if you go to Abuja, there are a lot of empty houses. Nobody has lived there for 10, 20 years. That is public servants and civil servants keeping their money. They just buy the house and keep it. But they now realize that they don't need to keep their money in houses again. So these days they're keeping their money in dollars. Even if you go to any office in Abuja, go there, and I can say this on record. Go to any office in Abuja, they will ask you to go and bring the bribe that they are seeking from you before they do anything for you in dollars. I know if journalists like, you can go and just send people undercover to go and figure this out. Go to any office and say, I want a license, I want a permit, I want this, I want that. And here the conditions they will give you, and it will be that bring your bribe in dollars. So that was Nigeria for you, printing money for consumption. Once you print money for consumption, the immediate impact is that money supply has increased in the economy, output is still the same. And once output is still the same, the more money in the economy will now be chasing the same output. That is inflation.
Okay.
all day long, that is inflation.
All right.
If Nigeria were to use the printed money in the way it is supposed to be, imagine the 22 trillion that was said to have been printed. Government used that money to buy tractors and other farm machinery. And on every Nigerian available land now, you have a tractor working, producing food. That would have been all right. That is how you use printed money, because the output that will be coming out of the farms will counter whatever inflationary measures the increase in money supply would have brought on the economy. Also, the food that would have been produced now all over the country, part of it will be exported. So you will not have a need to be stopping trucks carrying food. You will be calling on Niger, Chad, all the African countries, calling on US, UK, say, we have food, oh, come and buy food. Because imagine a tractor is working on every land in Nigeria. And if we were not exporting food in such quantum, then the foreign exchange crisis we're having now will not even have again, because we will have a lot of dollars. That is, our economy will be awash with dollars.
Okay.
And if our economy is awash with dollars, the price of dollar will fall. You know? So this is what happened. And do I want to give you the bad news? The bad news I want to give you is that this Minister of Finance that is speaking now, perhaps he's not aware, or he's aware that the current government is also printing money. How do I know that the current government is printing? How do I know that? Ask me. How do I know that the current government is printing money?
Yes, we're going to ask you that almost immediately.
Okay. The current government is printing money because this current government set out a budget. And in the budget, one of the benchmarks was that they will be producing about 1.8 million barrels of crude oil. I think it's 1.778. So approximately 1.8 million barrels of crude oil per day. As of today, Nigeria has not produced more than 1.4 million barrels. We're oscillating from 1.3, 1.4. That means we are not producing close to 400,000 barrels of crude oil per day.
We'll look into
as
that.
We estimated in the budget.
Mr. Nick, we'll look into that later as part of a second topic.
That's more like a second topic, so we'll have to also delve into it. But then, I want to come to you quickly.
Yes, so what I was trying, if I can just land that,
okay,
what I was about to say there is that if you are not making money as you expected to make, yet the federal allocation has increased. Federal allocation now is in the trillions of naira. Omo, where is that money coming from? Where is it coming from? It must be printing. There's no two way about it.
All right. So much have been said there, but the question we want to ask is, this present government is big on saying that the errors of the past is what they are suffering today. Now, let's not also forget that we're talking about the same party still in government. So, are we still going to continue in this blame game while Nigerians suffer? Because let's face it, there's been looting in several warehouses across the country, and then government agencies are also intercepting some trucks, taking out food and cutting out food and staple foods also out of the country. Now, the question now would be, what should the government do at this point to manage the situation, because it is really biting hard?
Thank you very much. A couple of things I will say about this. Let's not forget that President Tinubu, when he was soliciting for our votes, basically that is a process where a candidate is coming before us, the employers, with his CV looking for a job. He said he was going to continue with the policies of the Buhari government. I don't know if he had an understanding of the Buhari policies, because if he works up today and he's saying, no, these policies killed the economy, they contributed to inflation, they did this. Does it then mean that President Tinubu was not aware of these policies? If he was aware, then was he being honest with Nigerians? But if he was not aware, can he simply just come out and apologize to Nigerians and say, sorry guys, I didn't even know what I said the last time? That is number one. Number two, President Tinubu sought our vote to work for us, to solve the problems of Nigeria. He didn't seek our votes to come and lament and be looking for excuses or trying to transfer the problems we have now to someone else. Whatever the policies of previous governments and whatever damage that they did to the Nigerian economy, he is the man in the saddle now to deal with all those problems. Why is he not just facing the dealing of those problems? And let me tell you, there are very low-hanging fruits that I expected President Tinubu to be dealing with as we speak today. And I can mention a few of them. Number one, power supply. President Tinubu in 2 months will be 1 year in office. But let's not forget that he's already 1 year as president-elect and then president, because he was elected in February of 2023, last year. So it's already, so by 1 year ago, he received the certificate of return to become president-elect. But even before that 1 year ago, President Tinubu has nursed the ambition to be president for a long time. You know, back to 2015, when he had the alliance with the then candidate Buhari, I'm sure President Tinubu foresaw that in 8 years he would like to, succeed Buhari. And so he has got all this time to think through Nigeria's problems. He has lived in Nigeria. He knows the problems. Why is he not hitting the ground running? And there are areas he could have hit the ground running very quickly. And I say I will mention them. The first one is power supply. Let me tell you one thing. We have said this thing over and over again. If President Tinubu is not aware of this, he should better be aware of it now. There is no economy in the modern world that will do well regardless of your efforts if it doesn't have enough power supply. Because power is like blood to an economy. And if a doctor thinks he can heal a body that is anemic, that does not have enough blood, that doctor is a joker. I don't want President Tinubu to see himself as a joker, hoping that he can turn around Nigeria's economy with 3,000 megawatts of electricity. Where President Tinubu just came back from, which is from Qatar. He came back from Qatar. There are less than 3 million people in Qatar, and they are supplying them 12,000 megawatts of electricity. Imagine 3 million people on 12,000. That is 4,000 megawatts of electricity per 1 million people. President Tinubu has returned to a Nigeria supplying 3,000 megawatts to 200 million people. How is he going to do it? And what could he have done with the power? If he didn't know, he could have simply asked all the power sector. President Tinubu would have constituted a meeting of all the power sector operators in Nigeria. He only needed to commit half a day of his time. He would have sat these guys in the meeting room and say, guys, why are we giving Nigeria 3,000 megawatts? And he would have seen the reasons immediately. And one of the biggest reasons is the transmission company of Nigeria, which President Tinubu only recently appointed a new management team for. The transmission company of Nigeria, President Tinubu shouldn't be appointing a management team for them. That is a company President Tinubu should be leasing out or selling out outrightly. Because you see, we have privatized power sector, but we privatized the generation and the distribution, and we left the transmission in the hands of government. The bottleneck here is that generation cannot generate more than transmission can carry. And distribution cannot distribute what transmission has not given them. And the government of Nigeria, even as agreed by President Tinubu's Minister for Power in a recent interview, does not have the funding to expand the capacity of the transmission company of Nigeria.
Okay, Mr.
So,
Nick,
President Tinubu,
we need to cut you, not because of anything, but because we're constrained with time. Okay.
Yes, we need to manage time.
Yes,
But
exactly.
Dr. Gani, we want to come to you almost immediately. We'll continue with this conversation with you, Mr. Nick. But then I want to come to you, Dr. Gani. The government seems to want to get it right. And measures have been taken on several quarters. One of the first quarter is the CBN increasing interest rates. The NPR, you're big on this. Maybe you need to help us. If we have a weakened currency presently, is that any way to translate to the fact that inflation would drop? That's on one part. Secondly, the area of security, and because we want to wrap up this conversation, the area of security is also a major talking point. Intercepting trucks leaving the country with foodstuff. Did Nigeria at this point do it right by not trying as hard as they can? Just as mentioned by Mr. Nick, that we did not produce enough. Did we get it right at all?
Okay, those are beautiful questions. I want to take you down the line a bit. When you look at the policy that the central bank is using, it's a normal policy. We have the monetary policy and we have the fiscal policy. Fiscal policy has to do with security and ensuring things. Monetary policy is a tool in the hands of the central government to be able to mop more money out of the public or increase more money in the public, right? But we need to also move away from the book and comes to practical terms, right? Because this inflation we are talking about is not being caused by the number or volume of money in circulation.
Okay.
Most of the things that cause this inflation, you can see the food inflation rising, right? You can also see that the government, the CBN also, they don't have the autonomy. They don't have the total oversight of the number of volume of money in circulation. So it's outside their purview. And this is what the former CBN governor was trying to do. Because once you don't have a total control of the number of money, of the volume of money in the country, you cannot control it. A lot of money, people stock money in their houses.
Was that policy right, the policy of the former CBN governor, as regarding the printing of naira?
That is wrong. You see, that just like what he said, you are not supposed to print more money. Printing more money is just like you are making matters more worse. Like a saying that said, having an headache, cutting off an head is not a cure of having an headache, right? Printing more money is just like adding more salt to injury, right? You don't print more money because, and you also agree with me that this money is not printed in Nigeria.
Okay. Now,
And the cost to print one naira note, it's much more than the value of that naira. That is penny wise and pound fully when we bring it in a business sense, right? And when and we are already moving, the countries in the world, they are already moving out of an environment of spending. They believe there's a state in China that when they see a physical currency in your hand, you will look absurd, you will look abnormal, because they just flip their card, they do a transaction without carrying out currency anywhere.
Right now, noting all of this, just yesterday or the day before, the presidency has come out to say that Nigeria is not in distress. And that is a statement that seems to be very large. Some quarters we want to say, is the president not truly aware of the situations in the country? There was the issue of the customs selling rice in Lagos that took away lives of Nigerians. Now, is that not a physical fact enough? And of course, the lootings in several warehouses, are these not significant factors to say that Nigeria is not in distress, owing to the fact that we're no more producing, particularly in the agricultural sector?
You see, that is a total understatement, right? You said Nigeria is not, naira is being devalued. naira, the dollar to a naira is almost over 1,500. You see a lot of companies folding up and leaving Nigeria. Over 600 manufacturing companies are closing their shops. You see, now maybe the people surrounding the government are sycophants, selling the, that's why I said that leadership position is one of the risky positions, because you might not be opportuned to see what the masses are going through. So the people in different sectors should be able to feed you very well. That's why you could see, that's why I always say that during the time in Governor Fashola in Lagos, he moved out of his comfort position. He goes to the street to see what the people are facing.
But then, when the presidents came to town, there were videos of people screaming, "Ebing power," interpreting that we are hungry.
Not just that, he said also he understands the plight of the people.
So
he knows what Nigerians are fighting.
Is it that the government
he's asking
is not
Nigerians
really...
to give little time to him for him to work on that, but coming out to say we are not in distress.
So you can say that those are words that does not align. In the financial world, we call it mismatch. At this point in time, you say one thing. At the other point in time, you say another thing, as if you don't understand what you are talking at every point in time. So what I'm saying about, there was a time even in the Obasanjo regime, he said he does not believe that there's no Nigerian that cannot afford 3 square meal, right? Because based on what they're hearing. So I think it's high time for them to also see things themselves and not coming to us and tell us things. Because as we speak now, a lot of things is happening. Look at what is just happening in Borno State now. Over 200 people are being kidnapped, right? And the governor just came out one day and said that, the Boko Haram has been curtailed. Those we have are remnants, because it's a snowball of what some factor came up when they say that, if you don't take care of us enough, we are going to return back to the camp and become a Boko Haram again. And this is one of the things people also said then, that you don't need to give these people amnesty. They are not genuine with their conversation. Use them as a deterrent. Once you nip them to the ball, kill them off. Right? At that point in time, you ensure that this thing is put to an end. But these same people are coming now, they've kidnapped over 200 people, and before you know it now, Borno State is always been one of the peaceable place to stay in Nigeria then. But now it's more or less like a place where people dare to go.
Now, as we wrap up this conversation in one sentence, is Nigerians, are they really asking for too much from the government?
Nigerians are not asking for, they're not asking for too much. The basic of Nigerian thing is just like food, clothing, and shelter. They're not asking to buy a big car. They're even asking that just reduce the transport fare. Let us be able to move from one angle to the other, so we will live our life peaceably. Nigerians are not asking for too much, because we have the resources to be able to take care of us. All this thing is just that the government should become responsible enough to take care of their citizens.
All right, we'll wrap up this conversation now. Mr. Nick, just in one sentence, what would be your closing parting shot of this topic in just maybe 30 seconds?
Well, my parting shot is that the government should stop panicking measures. After trust, closing bureau de change, shutting down binaries, doing all of this, the government should roll up their sleeves and get down to work. I was in Benue State earlier in the week. No, I was in Benue State last week, and you're traveling on the road and you see cows eating up crops planted by farmers. A nation that prioritizes the feeding of animals over the feeding of human beings is going to run into food crisis. So government should take care of the security to allow farmers to do their work, and government should start a mechanization of farm work.
All right.
If I travel from Ikeja to even Palm Grove, I will go by bus. That is mechanization of working. Why is farming not yet being mechanized, and farmers are using their manual labor? Such is not going to produce enough food for the country.
All right, thank you so very much, Mr. Nick. Gentlemen, we urge you to stay with us while we get to the next topic. Well, up next, as President Tinubu signs executive order on oil and gas reforms. These and more we will talk about when we return. Stay with us.